The time is now 7 p.m. Let's call to order the Narragansett Town Council regular meeting. Today is Monday, June 5th. Please let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. We have several minutes to approve. The first one is the minutes of the April 3rd regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Next up is we have the April 11th budget work session minutes. For the motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have the budget work session April 12th minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 4 with 1 abstention. Next, we have the April 13th budget work session minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have the April 17th regular meeting minutes. So motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Lastly, we have the executive session minutes from April 17th. So a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 4 with 1 abstention. Next, moving along to the town manager's update.
Good evening, everyone. A few items to report. You'll see that the south side stairwell of Town Hall has finally been redone. They did a great job on it, ABCOR. Parks and Recreation has been converting and for the dual use of courts, 4 of them. We have 4 designated pickleball courts and 1 court lined on the existing basketball court on Clark Road. That's a total of 5. And then Dominic Christofaro, there's 2 tennis courts that are going to be lined for pickleball play for a total of 4. And then there's 5 the same way are going to go at George C. Park. These were the movable nets and the painting, and that gives a total of 14 when it's completed. It should be done. They've already started on it. It should be done shortly. We also just hired our new court administrator, Tracy Maziak. She started today, and we are currently vetting applicants for the HR manager position. We should be interviewing later this month. We will conduct the interviews. The police department will be posting signage at the parks and beaches, reminding people that marijuana public consumption is not permitted by town ordinance at the recreational facilities in town. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll move to open forum public comment. Again, open forum public comment is a time for any member of the public to speak on a topic not on the meeting agenda. A sign-in sheet is available to members of the public who wish to speak during open forum public comment and located on the table in the back of the council chambers. Speakers will be called in the order as they appear on the sign-in sheet. Before open forum public comment is closed, members of the public who did not sign up will be given a chance to speak. Speaking in a meeting during open forum public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Speakers are required to state their name and address before speaking and are expected to conduct themselves in an orderly and respectful fashion. The comments of citizens accessing this portion of the meeting are neither adopted nor endorsed by the body, but heard as requested. Mr. Tanner, who's the first speaker?
My name is Dave Bird. I'm a resident at 23 Perkins Ave in Narragansett. I've been a resident in town for 34 years, and my son, his wife, and my grandson live next door. I came to the December 14th planning meeting and asked if Perkins was included in the planning agenda, and stated at first that it was, but Mr. DeLuca said he would check, and we found that it was not. The board discussed it and was unanimous in their to consent that it should be, but it didn't appear in your copy of the first reading. So I met with Mr. Director DeLuca to talk about it, and he reviewed both the tape and the minutes and felt that yes, it was the consensus of the board to have it included, and so I'm asking that it be included as an addendum to the report tonight.
Yeah, that's on the agenda. If you usually we'd wait for someone to speak on that when the agenda item is up.
I apologize, I
That's
didn't
okay.
understand.
That's okay. All right, thank you. Next, anyone? Okay, so no others wishing to speak? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Celeberto.
Catherine Celeberto, 48 Rose Court. First, I want to say I object to relining the basketball court at Clark Road for pickleball. The town just spent $31,000 last year redoing that. There's only one basketball court on Clark Road. I just don't think it should be multi-purpose. It'll be the pickleball players will use it, and the kids who want to play basketball, including the camp kids, are not going to be able to do it. Second, I guess we're going to have an examination of the enterprise fund. For some reason, I thought an examination was an audit, but it isn't. So I'm just hoping that this examination isn't going to require hiring a consultant. You know, we've gone consultant crazy the last few years. I just don't think we should spend the money on it. And also, there's a huge monument on Clark Road, which really shouldn't be there. It seems that Dr. Albert and his family asked to name the skating rink after his father, and Miss Kershaw consented, and she allowed this monument to be put there. Now, this is not Dr. Albert's fault. This is on us, on the town, on Miss Kershaw. There are ordinances that address naming public property, and I think Dr. Albert and his family should be reimbursed. They spent quite a bit of money on this, and they thought they had permission, and they were given permission. The last thing is the last town council president examined a number of agendas and concluded that the Beach Clubhouse name was changed improperly to the North Beach Clubhouse. It was always the Canachet Beach Clubhouse. I remember this myself. And I know people objected at the time, but there doesn't seem to have been any town council approval of the renaming or replacing the sign. And Mr. Pugh, who's here now, asked Ms. Kershaw to make a new sign. She said signs are expensive. That was her response. This is quite an amount of time has gone by. She spent quite a bit of money on other items. I just don't know why there isn't a new sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak from the public? Okay. Moving along to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'd like to accept and pull for discussion 4 and 5, please.
Okay. Pulling out 4 and 5, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda minus D4 and D5?
Could I ask a question first? When I went through the consent agenda, a lot of the items seem to be items that normally would be under the auspices of various departments, and that they're not, and I was just curious about why that change happened.
One of my questions about these two.
Yeah.
There was,
Are you speaking about the races?
Well, not just, the races,
Well, the races are repeat, and in the past, we have put the repeat ones on consent agenda. It's only the new ones that go under the department head.
Huh. Didn't remember it that way, okay.
Okay, so those are the, do you still want to pull those?
Yes, so
Okay.
motion to approve with the exception of
Okay.
of D4 and D5 to discuss.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopek. Motion to pass consent agenda 5-0, with the exception of D4, D5. So moving along to D4. It is a motion to approve the request from Gray Matter Marketing to conduct the 10th annual Ocean Road 10K road race to be held on Sunday, October 1st, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., subject to state and local regulations. So a motion.
Yep, so the reason I wanted to discuss this, Council President, is in the past, Gray
Do
Matter.
we just need a first and a second?
Do we need a first and a second? We do. I'll make the motion to pull first.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Okay.
So the reason I asked to discuss this is that in the past, Gray Matter Marketing had made a contribution to the Historic Society, and in the information background we have, there's no mention of it. I do want to give our Parks Director an ability to come back and to explain that that when Michelle saw that this was not on, she did email the company and ask, and they are saying that they will be making a donation. They're not committing to the dollar amount, but they are saying that there will be a donation. And I know that Ms. Alberto had asked about that, so I wanted to clarify that.
Mr. Tierney, do you have information on that?
I think that's pretty much it, the way it was recapped by Council Lawler. We don't have an exact dollar amount on it.
I just want to say that they will be receiving some money because this is one of the races that actually does give back to the town. The town is very gracious with our roads and our road races, but this particular company does give back to a charity in town, which I commend.
Okay. Any other questions from the council on this? Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this one?
Ms. Alberto.
Oh, Ms. Celeberto?
Catherine Celeberto, 48 Earls Court. It wasn't on the application that they were going to give some of the proceeds to the Narragansett Historical Society. And every other year previous, they always wrote, race to benefit the Narragansett Historical Society. So being a stickler for detail that I am, I'm figuring, I don't want to give them an out. But at this point, Ms. Kershaw did speak to them, and they agreed that, yes, they're going to give a donation, and Dr. O'Neill is going to deal with this Miss Arpin, I think her name is. And if you know Dr. O'Neill, I think he'll get as much as he can out of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to comment on this agenda item? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next up on the consent agenda is a motion to approve the request from the Boston chapter of BMW CCA Rhode Island Group for the annual BMW Show and Shine Car Show at Veterans Memorial Park on Sunday, August 13th, 2023, subject to state and local laws.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Okay. Okay. Councilor?
Yeah, sure. I want to discuss this one a little bit, because we do have a number of different activities. I know that the rec board is going to be taking a look at all the activities that we offer during the summer months, and it seems to be a common concept in town that we're looking for the right balance of everything. And I think this is one of those things that we can look at for the right balance for. This is a Boston chapter of a BMW association that comes down during our summer months, parks on our grass at Veterans Memorial for a few hours during the summer when the pier is really congested anyway. Before anybody says it, I know they're going to go out for dinner at one of the restaurants afterward. But I just really think that we need to take a look at the activities that we're bringing in and allowing, and really judge which ones we should have so there's less congestion during during summer months in the pier. And this also has no benefit that I can see for the town residents. It's a club that comes from Boston. So I don't know if Deb had any thoughts on that.
Not really.
Anyone else from the council wishing to comment? Councilor Ferranti?
Yeah, I have a comment. We're at the point where everybody just wants to come into Narragansett, and sometimes the people in the pier don't have really a lot of peace and quiet between the weddings and everything else. So I'm glad to hear maybe that we're just going to be looking into at least the amount of events that are in the park and around. That would be a good starting point, just to see if maybe we could put some on a rotating basis possibly, or, you know, just kind of adjust them if we have to, at least get an inventory of what we're really having every year. Most of the time, it's the same ones, it seems like, that come up, so we can get a schedule and, you know, at least look at the total number. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the council? Anyone from the public? Ms. Ciliberto?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I just think this is the silliest thing. But anyway, you know, it makes them happy, that's fine. You know, you wonder how they discovered Narragansett from Boston to decide they have their car show here. But I think they should give some kind of a contribution. I know that we usually don't charge people who use Veterans Park, but there's no prohibition against charging them either. I just think they should contribute something, you know, to a charity, a local charity, something, make some kind of gesture. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Okay, none. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we'll move on to the Community Development Department for new business. We have a motion to authorize the town manager to write a letter removing the objection to CRMC based upon revisions to an extension of a dock, CRMC boating facility application modification 2002-09-100, located at 1201 Succotash Road.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public?
I just, you know, I just want to make sure that we're all clear on this, because we had a, you know, it's a little complicated, right? We were originally told, we were provided with information where this dock was not going to, that it didn't meet requirements. It's been changed. I did look at it. I never can really understand the map, so that was a little bit of a problem, but I guess I need to know a little bit more about how channels work. But so right now, we're in a position where we are in agreement that the changes that were made are sufficient to approve this after what had been originally provided to us, correct? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's correct. Correct.
The harbor master is saying so as well.
Right,
as,
right.
Yes, the modifications were made, and they're acceptable to
Okay.
the Management Council and the Harbor Master.
Keep an eye on it, make sure it goes that way, right? Okay, okay, I'm fine.
Okay, anyone else from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept a first reading, an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinance of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Ordinance in Relation to Zoning as it relates to text revisions related to wetland regulation.
So moved.
Second?
Council,
Yes.
this is the ordinance that goes with the public hearing.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. That's what I was, okay, never mind. I'll come back to that after we do the public hearing. So we'll just, thank you for that. So next from the town manager, we have a motion to read, pass, and adopt as a second reading the appropriation ordinance for the 2023-2024 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second?
Any comments from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have, I'm going to actually ask Mr. Davis about this one. This is the one that we were going to try to amend. So should I just read this and then get a first and second, and then make a motion to amend? Okay. So this is a long one. So this is a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading a resolution amending the official list of parking restrictions and regulations in the town of Narragansett in accordance with the Narragansett Code of Ordinances to restrict parking between May 15th and September 15th between 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. to include, in addition to existing restrictions for Boone Street, 3-hour limit on the west side of the street from Central Street to Perkins Avenue, and parking is prohibited on the east side of the street. Ocean Road, 3-hour limit on both sides of the street for the full length from Beach Street, traffic signal, and South Pier Road. Narragansett Avenue, 3-hour limit on both sides of the street for the full length, except where currently permitted, between Beach Street traffic and signal and the Caswell-Narragansett Avenue intersection. Congdon Street, 3-hour limit parking resident permit allowance on the north side of the street from Boone Street to Ocean Road. Rodman Street, 3-hour limit parking resident permit allowance on both sides of the street from Boone Street to Fifth Avenue and on just the north side of Fifth Avenue to the western terminus. Caswell Street, 3-hour limit parking resident permit allowance on both sides south of Rodman Street to its southern terminus. Rockland Street, 3-hour limit parking resident permit allowance on the east side from Kingstown Road to the southern terminus. Robinson Street, 3-hour parking resident permit allowance on the west side for the full length between Narragansett Avenue to its southern terminus, and Rose Court, 3-hour limit parking resident permit allowance on the west side of the street for its full length between Rodman Street and Congdon Street. So I have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Do we have to approve it first and then, or just discussion? And okay, so does anyone want to just have any discussion on this one? Because we do want to include the amendment that was just discussed earlier. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to include the following text of Perkins Avenue, 3-hour time limit parking resident permit allowance on the north side of the street for its full length between Boone Street and its eastern terminus.
Because it's just on the west side, right?
Yeah. So this is for adding that language to it. Do I have a motion?
So moved, sure.
Second?
Okay. Any discussion from the council? Any discussion from the public? Ms.
Just-
Durama?
This is on the amendment only, the discussion?
Perkins?
This is only on the amendment discussion? Okay.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion to amend by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion to amend passes 5-0. Next is we'll go back to the motion as amended. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion?
Well, I think that there are a number of things that Jim brought out in his weekly report to us this past week that need to be incorporated into this so we can make sure that we have a full and complete ordinance. There are some things that I would like to have included. I mean, the one thing that really concerned me most was the lack of CSOs that we may have for enforcement, and the fact that we won't have the ability to order signs, and if we don't have signs, we can't enforce. So I was hoping that you could help me understand how you plan to incorporate all of that into this ordinance so that we can feel that we can move forward with it tonight, because it doesn't seem like it's complete.
Well, we wouldn't order or manufacture the signage until both readings were completed, because it could be amended, and any council member could make an amendment to it. So we wouldn't print any of the signs until such time as the ordinance was in place. And there's a back order of some reflective paint and signage itself from the companies. I spoke to DPW director on that. They're way behind. They think probably at the earliest we might be able to get them all posted by October. And it's approximately 170 signs. And we are still waiting. CRMC, we do have to apply to them for a permit for Long Ocean Road. And we are still trying to figure out what's the best way to do signage there.
Would that be for a permit for actually putting into the cement, or are there temporary types of signs that we can put in just for the summer season and remove? I know that was an objection I've heard from a lot of folks that during the shoulder season, they don't really want to see signs up, especially on the wall.
There's a great deal of cost associated with that, number one. Number two, if they're freestanding, they're by the ocean, we fully anticipate people just pick them up and throw them into the ocean, or the heavy winds could knock them into vehicles or pedestrians, and it could cause an obstruction on the sidewalk if we had like large planter baskets with the signs in them.
So you've already looked into all types of those signs, and there's none that would actually fit our needs?
We are looking at one. Steve Dano is looking at the possibility of, because the barrels are fastened, maybe we come up with some type of a system on that, but I'm sure there'll be some discussion about sign pollution on that stretch of beautiful road.
Any other comments from the council? Questions?
I have a question.
Councilor
Jim,
Ferrandi?
I drove down Ocean Road, and on the, going north on the left side, there's no poles on the right, obviously on the seawall, and I may be getting in the weeds a little bit here, but the only place I see to put a sign is on the left side with those metal poles. Can there be some kind of temporary sign, like during COVID when, towards the beach, there was a lot of no parking signs, they were strapped on, it was a heavy plastic. I don't know if that helps, but if we can get the ordinance going, we did pass it, just maybe to get something started this season. I know it's getting kind of late, but did you look into that option at all?
We've not looked into temporary disposable signage. It's a tough one. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's windy, a lot of them just stayed up. Matter of fact, I just pulled one down from COVID at the end of my road not too long ago, but it's not the best looking one, but I mean, at least it's something if we wanted to get started this season,
Yeah,
I know we have to pass it
Thank
twice.
you.
So.
I just want to ask Mr. Davis a question. So this is just really, the motion is to introduce, read, pass, and accept. I'm not sure that we're supposed to be having all these conversations, but if you could just kind of just clarify that. I just want to make sure we're staying on point here.
I think it was posed as a potential amendment, so that would be appropriate.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. Any other comments on the amendment? Anyone from the public? Okay, so all in favor?
Didn't we vote for
What
that
are we
already?
voting on?
We voted for the amendment for Perkins.
For Perkins, right? We
Yeah,
already did that.
so motion to go back to the original motion
Right.
as amended. So do I have a first? I
Do we
guess
have
I'll
to
take
do
a-
that? We have to do that, okay. So, Jill, you want to move that?
Sure, I'll move
Motion
it.
Second?
Okay, so this is a motion to accept the amendment as, the ordinance as amended, accept the
didn't-
ordinance
didn't-
as amended with the Perkins.
Didn't we were going to listen to the public if anybody had any?
I did ask, I didn't see anyone. Oh, I'm sorry, I
That's
didn't-
over.
We see a few.
Mr. Rimmel, thank you.
Hi, good evening. Gina Drama, 11 Fifth Avenue. One of the questions that I was thinking about, first of all, great job getting this done. I know this has been a long time in the making, but the decision to put time limits without meters, without putting any pay parking on any of those roads is something you guys need to look at in the long run, because the encumbrance of the cost to hire more CSOs or to put the signs up, those are all costs without any return. And so there's so many different avenues that you could have gone. I know there was a lot of discussion over the course of this study. But even if you had a portion of those areas in the pier and in Galilee, those are the two most congested areas where you have fee parking in some of those high turnover places, you might be able to recover some of those costs. And so as you move forward, that's something that I hope that you'll keep in mind, because I think there are going to be some hiccups with this, particularly enforcement, clearly signage, and there'll be some other things as the implementation of these ordinances move forward. So it's just a thought.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, I'm going to actually have to change. I'm going to hold that thought for everyone. We just have to. It's 7:30 right now, so we have to move to the public hearing decision portion of our meeting. So the next up, we have. Actually, do you need a minute to set up, or are you good? Yeah, give her a minute. All set? Okay. So we have a motion to open and hold a public hearing for text revisions to various sections of the zoning ordinance to comply with recent state law changes to wetland regulations.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. So I will
You
have,
have to
so
vote.
there's a
Council President.
presentation, yeah.
Need to vote to open.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all
Aye.
opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Council President and members of the council. I'm only here for a moment. I just wanted to introduce the project and the hearing that you're going to be listening to in a minute. All I want to say right now is that this process that you're going to be seeing on the screen is something that was required by the state of Rhode Island. What it effectively does is remove certain elements of our wetland regulations that have resided in the town zoning ordinance in section 4.3 for upwards of 30 years. We do it reluctantly. We want you to know that. We are responding to the mandate of the General Assembly, which occurred several years back. But the key person who worked on this in my office was Jill Sabo. She's our environmental planner and GIS coordinator. So I'd like to ask her to come up and present the changes to the ordinance to you. It's a fairly short PowerPoint presentation, but she has a much better working knowledge of it than I do. So I'm going to turn it over to Jill.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the council. As Mr. DeLuca mentioned, my name is Jill Sabo. I work in the Community Development Department, and we're here to talk about a couple of changes that are happening to the zoning ordinance with respect to Section 2.2, which is the definitions section, and Section 4.3, which is the coastal and freshwater wetlands section. So I do have a PowerPoint. I'm going to try to do a concise page turn for everyone. There we go. Excellent. Okay, so as Mr. Luca mentioned, these changes come from the state law that was passed in 2015. Those rules were promulgated in July of 2022, so it took a little bit of time for the state between the change and the promulgation. But here we are. The ordinance has been revised to update some definitions, to clean up or replace outdated language, to remove the references for a special use permit for freshwater wetlands, and also to add text that would support our existing ordinance. Under the definitions section, we revised both definitions for coastal wetlands as well as freshwater wetlands to match the state definitions. And if anyone has questions and you want to stop me, please let me know. These changes are directly from the new state law. So additionally, we made a couple of different edits that were intended to clean up some outdated language where we refer to the DEM as the Department of Environmental, and to clarify some references. And we removed old text. We added some more general languages when we refer to the state guidelines and the state regulations. Okay, so we also removed our list of prohibited uses that was in our ordinance, and we added the text directly from the state law. We did this as a matter of consistency. And here, under special use permits, uses, you can see this section where we removed the reference to freshwater wetlands, and we only refer to coastal. And this text clarifies that the freshwater wetlands no longer requires a special use permit. It's been removed, and the language has been revised, the outdated language. I don't know which way to click, but it's not clicking. Ah, there we go. Okay. So this is the newest section. So this is the special review uses. We propose this language, and the planning board is recommending it to you to add the following text that dovetails with the existing ordinance. The special review use is not a requirement of the zone for zoning relief. In other words, it's not a special use permit. I just want to point out that while the town lost its ability to locally regulate, it doesn't mean the wetlands go away. They're still there. And that the existing zoning ordinance uses the wetland information to inform and set parameters around other ordinance requirements, as you may recall the bulk regulations from a couple of years ago. So specifically under section 2.2, the floor area ratio is based on the net lot area. And that's if anyone needs to know, floor area ratio is the aggregate floor area. The definition of net lot area in our new bulk regulations is the area, in part, is the area of the lot that is upland of any verified coastal feature or any CRMC or RIDEM verified wetlands. So that's in our new ordinance, that's in our ordinance currently. And then also under section 6.4B for floor area ratio matrix, the table under section 5, I believe, 6.4B5. We refer to a table, and that the floor area ratio is based on net lot area. So it's based on that definition under section 2.2. This special review use references both of those. So it says that the edge, the verified wetland edge, that the edge shall be verified under the ordinance as it currently exists, and that that information may be required in order to pull a building permit prior to the issuance of a building permit. This text is an addition, and it buttresses the existing ordinance that references the wetland section. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
All right, I have some questions.
Councilor Frandy.
In your opinion, what are the major differences? I kind of read the old and the new, and I know I'm trying to, I think the old buffer zone had like 150 and 100 feet, and is this one a 150-foot buffer zone from any so-called wetland, forested or swamp and all that, as far as from the edge?
Are you referring to a freshwater wetland?
Right.
It removes all jurisdiction from the town. We no longer can locally regulate buffers for freshwater wetlands. The state took that over.
Right, but what is the new state buffer?
I
Is it
wouldn't
one- is it
want to
100
speak on that. It varies on which area in the state you are, what other parameters. And those aren't our regulations. I wouldn't feel comfortable giving you that information.
I thought I saw something about the district defined. It says the coastal and freshwater wetlands overlay district also includes all land within 150 feet of the biological edge of the above wetlands as established by a wetlands biologist. That's the new, I believe.
Mr. Franny, can you refer to me where you're reading from?
4.3, number 1. Is that
Yes,
that's
correct.
the new
Yep.
language, all right?
Yes, I
Right?
see what you're saying.
So,
So what I would say to that is the freshwater wetlands portion, what we're trying to do with section 4.3 is still use the ordinance section to inform whether or not the project needs to go to either CRMC or RIDEM for an approval or an exemption. So we would still be using the overlay district, which is 100 feet or 150 feet, but not for the purposes of a special use permit, but simply to inform my department and the building inspections department whether or not the project would need to be referred to a state agency.
okay. Yeah, it's similar than before, but it just seems like it's a larger 150-foot buffer zone.
It's actually that
Same
text hasn't changed.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Actually, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, next we have a motion to receive and accept the planning board report and recommendation related to zoning text amendments in regard to the RIDEM, CRMC, freshwater wetland regulations.
Motion to accept their reluctant recommendation.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a motion to reschedule a public hearing to amend the text section 5.5 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett entitled Zoning for the purpose of adding a new historic district zone, 170 Clark Road, the camp.
So moved.
Second.
So the date of this is going to be August 7th, 2023, because there's a recommendation, the recommendation memorandum is pending. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a motion to reschedule the public hearing on an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, specifically text revisions of Section 2.2, definitions, and a new Section 7.21, student-occupied dwellings.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and then the proposed date now is July 17th, 2023. And that's just the planning board anticipates completing the review and providing a recommendation sooner than anticipated. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. So next, we will go to E2 on the agenda, which is a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, an ordinance in relation to zoning as it relates to text revisions related to wetland regulation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Just anyone from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. So we'll go back to the agenda item that we had left off. We are done with the public hearing part of this meeting. So next we will move on back to a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept the resolution for the parking restriction. So anyone from the public wishing to speak on that? Ms. Siliberto.
Is this a public hearing? Do I have to
No.
come in? No?
We're all set. This is going back to our regular agenda.
So I can speak on anything that happens to be in this motion, not just Perkins or whatever. Okay.
It's motion
first-
to amend, yeah, motion to amend.
This is the motion to amend to add Perkins.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I have to speak on. What about the motion itself that delineates all the streets and, commented? Can we comment on that part or no? I'm not sure what part we're on here. Take the
So
choice.
we're actually back on that. You can speak on that because we passed the motion to amend. So we're back on the original motion.
First, I just want to say something. There is a sign on Ocean Road behind the seawall in the weeds near the curb after Monahan, and it says no parking. And every time I go by it, I'm like, who the heck can see that? But there is a sign there on a steel pole. I don't know, put it there or when, but I always say to myself, that should be over there on the sidewalk. Anyway, I agree with this. I think we need limits, especially around Boone and other streets. Some people are just parking there all day. But I feel that some of these restrictions are going to drive people into the Sprague Park parking lot, and they're already in the Thompson Park parking lot. they're there day and night, and they always park in the handicap spot, which really upsets me. But anyway, so I think that there has to be some kind of instruction to post signs in the Sprague parking lot that no beach parking, and also in the Thompson Park parking lot, no beach parking. Because I mean, like I say, they're already at Thompson Park, but I feel that these restrictions may drive them into Sprague Park. And we want to leave that open for the baseball players and the.
And there's a motion later
playground.
on by Councilor Kopech
That's
to look into
different.
those, both of those parks.
Okay, so I'm back on this part. Okay, I think it's a great idea. Thanks.
Anyone from the public? Mr. Richards, is that you?
Stephen Richards, 91 Inez Street, Narragansett. The question I have is, the point I'm trying to make is, and when you have this 3-hour parking, it's obviously going to affect, because there's going to be some changeover, but there's going to be a lot more parking fines, and there'll be other things. And some of this may affect the ultimate usage of the town beach, because there's a lot of people who park out in those streets and go to the town beach for quite a while. And some of those people, if they start getting parking tickets and they're not going to be, they don't want to go to the beach for 3 hours, they're going to start, it's going to be could be a problem. So there's a potential for parking, for this problem to ultimately affect the use of the town beach and the income that comes into that town beach. So maybe there might be a trade-off between the town beach, which is an enterprise zone and uses that funds for the beach, but the town parking fees go to the town. So it'll be an interesting trade-off that'll happen, or very likely to happen, with the angry people who will not want to pay the fines and will not come to the town beach because they can only park for 3 hours. So an alternative places for parking and allowing for people to get to the beach is going to have to be some sort of consideration if you're going to strongly enforce this regulation. So that type of issue, I think, is it needs to have in some consideration. I think the people who live on those streets and the other people who are kind of angry about people parking in front of the house all day will be happy about this. But ultimately, there are trade-offs that need to be considered. And those trade-offs, if they're not considered, could have a deleterious effect on the town income because a lot of people, I mean, thousands of people use those streets for parking on a regular basis. And those thousands of people, if there are 2 or 3 people in the car, that could reflect to 2,000 or 3,000 people on a given day that may want to go that may not go to the beach because they're not happy with the resources that the town has given them for parking.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, so going back to the council, this is a motion to approve, to introduce, read, and pass and accept as a first reading a resolution amending the official list of parking restrictions and regulations in town of Narragansett in accordance with Narragansett Code of Ordinances to restrict parking between May 15th and September 15th with the language included as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, so the motion by Council Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 4 with 1 abstention. Next up from the Human Resources Department, we have a motion to adopt the resolution establishing the proposed wages for seasonal part-time and temporary employees for fiscal year 2023 and 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? Ms. Ciliberto?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I just think that some of these hourly wages are kind of low, given, just the inflation rate this year. These kids, they take these jobs to save money for college, I would think, most of them. And I just think we're kind of underpaying a lot of people. They say that Subway sandwich shop is paying $18 an hour. I just think that we could step up to the plate here and pay a little more. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next, from the Public Works Department, we have a motion to approve the contract extension for pavement preservation services, including crack sealing with Seal Coating Incorporated, doing business as Indus, as their quoted unit price of $12.47 per gallon for crack sealing.
So moved.
Second?
I just have a question.
Yes, Counselor.
So Jim, you know, the rocks that they put on the road, the crack seal that they put on, a couple of people have called me over the years, but I guess it was Pettisquamskett that had some done, and people were just kind of complaining about the rocks. Is that cheaper to do on the roads? Is that why we use it? Because I just, people don't seem to always like that, so I was just curious about
It
that.
is, and it's very durable. I did receive one complaint from one resident, and a couple of years ago, I received another one, but that's all I've received.
Do they brush it off so it goes away? I mean, people are worried about their cars when they're driving down and it hits it, no?
We don't get complaints like
All
that.
right, so a couple of people just inquired about it, and I know roads are important to the people, so I just wanted to make sure we're not just going with the cheap, but we're going with what's most effective for the residents.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the council? Anyone from the public?
Oops, one.
Oh, do we?
Mr. Jarvis, I think.
State your name and
Hi there,
address.
Roger
please.
Jadis, Warden Blindbrook Drive. Just to comment on that pitch, I believe they call that. I know St. James was done about 3-4 years ago, and when it first went down, it was like, oh, what the heck is this stuff? It's great now. So if we're saving some money doing it, and over the long run, it's going to last, that's the way to go. So kudos for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next, from the Engineering Department, we have a motion to approve the proposed cost for change requests, C13.1, 3-14.1, and C-16 from E.W. Berman Incorporated for the Maury Luntjens Memorial Library renovation project in the amount of $1,100,956. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council?
I just want to make sure that, I believe that the funding source is not listed properly on here.
It was, we just passed the budget.
Well, I know, but it was it's actually listed as part of the new renovations, not the capital budget that it's in. So I just want to make sure that it's clear to everybody.
Mr.
Correct.
Tierney?
It was the capital.
It is
that was,
capital, right.
Placed back into the budget at the council's request. Correct.
Okay.
Thanks.
you.
Anyone else wishing to comment? Anyone from the public? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
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 Okay. Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 3-2. Next up, from the Information Technology Department, we have a motion to approve the purchase of Windows Server licensing from Zones LLC in the amount of $34,585.62, utilizing the NCPA contract.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 4-0. Next up is a motion to approve the purchase of one Tintry network storage server from CDWG in the amount of $61,469.50, utilizing the State of Rhode Island Master Price Agreement and the purchase of one Dell computer server from Zones LLC in the amount of $9,268, utilizing the NCPA contract for a total amount of $70,737.50.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public?
I'm sorry. No.
Okay. Anyone from okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 4-0. Next up from the Parks and Recreation Department, we have a motion to approve a goatscaping project in the open field known as the Upper Meadow east of the South County Museum.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. Well, because it's Tom's.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
That's the only reason.
okay.
I think it's a
thought
great idea.
Okay, great.
It's
Okay.
great, and also kudos, we did receive a grant from the Rhode Island Foundation for this as well. But if you could come, Tom, could you please come and put to
Explain
ease
goatscaping?
the,
We don't need, it's,
I just want, because there are going to be goats loose in a neighborhood, but they're going to be captive. I just want to make sure that the neighbors next door are feeling okay with the fact that there's going to be somebody there. Well, they're going to be penned. They're going to be penned, so they're going to be loose.
I think we're good. Thank you.
I'd actually just like to make sure, this neighborhood has been having some issues with the South County Museum. I
Okay,
just want to
Mr.
make sure
Hoagland, please,
that they
yeah.
understand that they're not going to be woken up one day to goats
I don't
walking
mind.
around.
Okay, thanks.
So the technique is that they bring an electrical fence, and it's a portable electric fence, and they set it up around the perimeter that has been designated as the work area. So they're entirely contained, and there is an attendant or two with them all the time.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that that was said. Thank you.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
They're very cute, by the way.
They're
Very-
cute, yeah.
Very cute.
Okay. So that was motion, the motion was made by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 3 with 1 abstention. Next up, we have a motion to approve production services for the 2023 Movies on the Beach Summer Series from R. Jason Citrone Production Services, music mixers in the amount of $4,725.
So moved.
Sorry, second.
Okay, any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? Ms. Siliberto.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I just want to commend Ms. Kershaw. She prevailed upon Mr. Citrone to add some new movies. Every year was just like the same movies over and over and over again. So he has added some new ones, and I think maybe more people will come down this summer.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 4-0. Next up, we have a motion to approve the improvements to the upper soccer field at Dominic Crisafaro Park to be completed by Specialized Turf Services in the amount of $10,757.50 pursuant to the State of Massachusetts Master Agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council?
Just want to thank Michelle and her staff for moving on this as quickly as they did. I think it's going to be a really helpful thing for the kids.
Thanks. Anyone from the public? Mr. Richards?
Stephen Richards, 91 Island Street. I noticed that there's $10,000. By the way, I think the $10,000 and spending this money is a good idea. I noticed that it came up just a couple of weeks ago, or a month or so ago, when some young students came up here and talked about it. And the fact that the town is appropriating $10,000 for this is actually a good thing. But I'm curious as to why we can't get the pickleball courts fixed. You know, by the way, I want to say thank you for fixing the parking lot. That was nice. I appreciate the town manager taking care of that. But why can't we get the pickleball courts fixed? It's got to be no more than a couple $1,000.
So I'm just going to stay on
What I'm
topic. This
saying
is
is,
a motion to
I
approve
understand,
this.
right,
This is about Crisafaro Dominic Park, so this is about the
Thank you for doing
specialized
one
services.
thing,
Thank you.
But why can't you do another?
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
No, but while we're thanking, I also want to thank Joe Harvey, because Joe Harvey met with the soccer folks that came out, Michelle, myself, I was there, and we had a great meeting, and Michelle, great job with you and Joe going out there and making sure that we could work with this group. They're very satisfied, so thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? A motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. Next, from Building and Zoning Department, we have a motion to approve the contractual agreement between the town of Narragansett and Anthony D. Wojcik to perform electrical inspections for the building official's office from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. Next, we have a motion to approve the contractual agreement between the town of Narragansett and James Harris to perform plumbing and mechanical inspections for the building official's office from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion from the council? Anyone from, Mr. Frandy, did you? Okay. Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. Next is a motion to approve the contractual agreement between the town of Narragansett and Russell DeGranges to perform plumbing and mechanical inspections for the building official's office from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. Next up from the town clerk's office is a motion to approve the 3-year software maintenance service contract for the judicial case management system used by municipal court from Curious Systems Incorporated in the amount of $7,000 plus an at-unit cost per ticket after 1,000 tickets, and to authorize the town manager to sign the contract after solicitor review.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. Next is a motion to approve a victualler license application for Gansett Pokey LLC, doing business as Gansett Pokey, 9 Pier Marketplace, Narragansett, Rhode Island, subject to local and state regulations.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. Next, we have a motion to approve a victualler license application for Doughboys LLC, doing business as New York Bagels of Rhode Island, 909 Boston Neck Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island, subject to local and state regulations.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. Next up, we have a motion to approve a Sunday parking license for Bizarre Bazaar, located at 227 Sandhill Cove Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island, subject to state and local regulations.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. So next up, we have a motion to reappoint 2 individuals to the Juvenile Hearing Board.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have one individual that is looking for a reappointment, which the board is not recommending because of attendance, I believe. So we have 2 other applicants that are looking to be appointed, and that is Mr. John Silvera, and then we had Stephen Gibri. So we can amend that motion. Somebody want to make an amendment?
Sure. A motion to appoint Stephen Gibby and John Sevilla to the board.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one issue that I just want us to consider, and that is what we've talked about in the past is staggering terms, so we don't end up with people with an entire board being dismissed like the Towers was. And I looked forward, and I think both of these are short term. No, one is a new not a new position, but a replacement position that was due some time ago. So I think what we're going to end up with again is all these folks getting being placed on the board and then leaving the board at the same time. So we need to think about staggering, and we don't necessarily have to do it right now, but we definitely have to do it in. I think it's November when they are out. So, or we could make the new position be, say, a 2-year position to start the staggering now.
I think I'll ask Ms.
November.
Taro information on that. That's like there are 5 members and they're 3-year terms, so I'm not sure that, we can change that, so I'll ask. Is that?
Yeah, I think.
They are staggered, so 2 of them have the same ending date and 3 of them have the same ending date.
Right.
So
I'd like to see that we do that a little bit, stagger it a little bit better than that going forward. We don't, like I said, we don't have to do it tonight, but is it November, October, November when the
This
rest
one's November.
come up? And I just think we need to.
November.
Yeah, so I think we need to make sure that at that time we stagger maybe 2 of those positions so that we just have it, have it in better shape to have somebody come along and take your responsibility for it, et cetera. And all the rest of them too. So I think that's really important to remember as we're doing this. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Anyone from the public wishing to comment?
These are fine.
Okay, so a motion to appoint the 2 individuals, Mr. Gibbery and Mr. Silvera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. Next up, from the Town Council, we have a motion to make a determination on the various areas of concern identified by the Planning Board memorandum dated January 12th, 2023, regarding parking in the pier area during the summer season.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and this one is coming from Councilor Kopech.
So when we first discussed this, I believe it was the session before this one of the things that the planning board had was a series of other areas of concern, and I just wanted to make sure that we didn't let these areas not be at least evaluated. So I wanted to kind of go through them. We don't have to vote on anything tonight, and depending on how quickly we're able to get the parking ordinance in place, we may want to revisit this in the future. So just to keep everybody aware of the issues. One was Gibson Avenue, and the planning board stated that they are concerned that this road could become attractive for transient parking and suggest that the town council consider implementing some form of regulation specifically to protect the green from being overused for vehicular parking. It sounds like it's a pretty far distance from the beach, which is really largely what a lot of these parking spaces have been for in the past, were use on the beach. But just as Ms. Alberto mentioned, Thompson Park and Sprague Park are 2 other places that have the same kind of potential issue where people drop folks off at the beach and then, the driver takes the car, parks it, and comes to the beach. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that, there are unintended consequences in terms of anything that we do, and we just have to take a look at that or follow that to make sure in the future that we're not creating a new problem by solving an old one. There's also been discussion about parking fines. And one of the suggestions that the planning board has, they said at $50 per offense now, it is seen by some as not much more than a reasonable parking fee. There is some evidence that people park legally not being put off by paying the fine. So the board is suggesting that the fine for parking over time should be increased to discourage violators from ignoring the proposed new regulation. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, but I do think that we need to take a look at it and see what happens. Again, I think it's really important that once we get this in place, that we do, we take, a great deal of care looking at what happens afterwards and make decisions possibly later on based on what we find in the first year. I think that's really, really important. And the last thing that was that is interesting, is possibly finding a way to bring back the trolley system. What the planning board said was they feel strongly that the trolley system should be reinstituted as it will aid those who want to park in one place longer than the new restrictions will allow, to pay a single price to leave their vehicle at the elementary school or some other appropriate public parking facility and visit the pier area, avoiding the frustration of seeking parking at various venues of interest. And actually, I think that the, unrelated to the beach, I mean, we have the art festival, we have the Calamari Festival, and I know, I don't live in the pier area, and when I want to go to an event like that, or even the blessing, activities, often it's, we've turned around and gone back home because we couldn't find a place to park. So I think that having, at least considering this, if not for any other reason, then maybe for some of the special events that do occur, we might want to, take a look at that as well. So I just brought this up just to make sure that everybody was aware of all of these issues and that we don't lose track of the fact that what we end up doing in terms of the ordinance might need to be tweaked or modified in order to meet what our real objective has been. And that's it. We don't have to vote on this.
Okay, any?
I just want to add to the really good comments from Deb. The Thompson Park and Sprague Park, we have the planning board suggesting a 3-hour time limit.
Right.
I'd like to just get away with a time limit.
For Thompson, not for Sprague, though.
Right, well, no, for Sprague, they have three hours as well, for both. Yep, it's right here.
Do they?
Yep. So I don't even think that we should allow for parking there. I mean, I think that that's our designated playgrounds for our town kids and those visiting during the summer months and whatever. I think we should be a tow zone. They should not be able to park. There should be no beach parking whatsoever, so that should be an option to look at. I agree with Deb that the parking fees, knowing people that live in Narragansett Avenue, having people close their door, ask how much it costs for a fine, finding out it's only $50, and they're like, that's cheap, let's just park. We need to look at that. The trolley, the only reason the trolley isn't around is that the trolley would not properly insure what the town required, so we had issue with that. And the one last thing that I think that we really need to look into is many people that are fortunate enough to live in the pier, they can park there, but there are people from the north end of the town, south end of the town, that don't have the ability to park outside of their homes. So I would love for us to take a look at what do we do for people who are town residents and find some way that they also can be able to park in town. And Jim, you're probably already working on this, but with the parking spaces that we have for the soon-to-be library, those 60 or so, I don't know what we're doing with them for the summer, if we're monitoring them, if there are no parking, but it's also an area we need to look at so that we don't end up with having beach parking there, unless we want to charge for it there.
Any other discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? Mr. Schofield?
Harry Schofield, 9 Atlantic. I just want to express support for Jill's comments. The playgrounds and the parks, there should be no beach parking or no any parking there other than people using the playgrounds and the parks for their intended purposes. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll just make my comments too. So I know this motion was put on just to keep the discussion going and for a determination. So just from the consensus of the council, it sounds like it's something that we can look in the future once we kind of establish and implement like what we're doing with the parking that we already passed. I'll let other members from the public speak as well, but would any council member, entertain a motion to table it, and which means we can always bring it back when,
It's a good idea.
Yep.
Did you want to speak on
No,
this?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. So do you want to hear from the public before we make
Yeah,
the
does
motion?
anyone else want to, we're going to table it, but Ms. Alberto, you're welcome to speak.
Catherine Celeberto, 48 Earls Court. I don't see why this has to be tabled, frankly. Ms. Kopek put these areas of concern together, and I think they should be discussed. You can go through them one by one. Gibson Avenue, that's something Vinnie and Deglia came up with at a planning board meeting. Even Mr. Fleming said, on the green? Nobody's parking on the green. Nobody's going to go down there. I'm not even, we don't want it to happen, but it's never happened in the past, even when there's been like horrendously hot beach days. Thompson Park and Sprague Park, there has to be signs placed. No beach parking, parking for playground only, whatever. And because it's, you know, sometimes there's actually parking on the street, and they'll park in these, that parking lot is the craziest thing. I think one year, Ms. Kershaw just put a little handmade sign in Sprague Park. It was one of those years where they kept parking in Sprague Park. No beach parking. And then there was nobody parked there. Just put a sign, no beach parking. I think that should be decided tonight, and I think that there should be signs. I don't agree with the 3-hour parking. I don't think we can even do that, tell you the truth. Parking fines, I'd like to know what's our collection rate, actually? You know, how many tickets do we get? How many pay? I'd be interested to know that. I think that the handicapped and the parking near a fire hydrant fines should be increased substantially. Trolley, you know, we just can't get anybody to get a trolley and pay, and it's just, people don't even want to pay for the trolley. They really don't. They just want it all for nothing. And the people that are going to be parking on the streets here, the people that park now, they don't pay to get into the beach. They come before 8:30. They're in that Thompson Park before 8:30, and they get onto the beach before it opens. These aren't people that are saying, oh, I'm going to park for free on the street and I'll pay the $12. They don't want to pay it all. So I'm not really concerned that the revenue is going to go down. But I would really like to see you just address a couple of these things tonight and not just table it. Thank you.
Can I just make one point? The Congdon Street parking is on the north side, which is opposite where the parking is for the park, for Thompson Park. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea to say that this is, you know, and actually, I think the recommendation had to do with, because it's a public park, there are parking requirements anyway. So I think that, you know, we probably should ensure that we have signs where the park parking is, but by the same token, it's not technically allowed in accordance with this ordinance. The ordinance allows parking on the other side of the street.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay,
So
so
we're
do
gonna
what you,
table?
yeah, so somebody needs to make that motion.
Okay, I'll move to table this.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion to table this motion by Councilor Kopech, seconded by Councilor Lawler. Motion passes 4-0. Next up from the Town Council is a motion to approve after-hours parking in the North Lot and the Cabana Lot for residents only from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this one is coming from Councilor Lawler.
Sure. So what this motion will do is we have 4 lots. So it will be taking 2 of the 4 lots and making them resident only between 5 to 8, which means the other 2 lots would be open to any non-resident and/or visitor to go to the beach. This is something that I've heard from a lot of people. They're very happy about this. There are people that come home from work at 5 o'clock or get off from work at 5 o'clock and want to be able to go home, not have to race to the beach in order to get a parking spot, to be able to park to have dinner or have the evening hours, which are really beautiful at the town beach. Not to mention the fact that we have a number of concert series and movies at the beach during the summer, and this will allow preference for our residents to have parking. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to make sure that our residents have preference to be able to have parking at the beach, at their town beach, especially when we're offering the other 50% of the other lots to anyone who else wants to come to enjoy.
Thank you. Any discussion from the council?
Steve, you have something?
Councilor Ferrandi?
I think it's reasonable to do this. As Jill stated, I mean, there's still 2 lots open. There's one big lot towards the south end that's still available. So, and I don't know how crowded it gets, but, you know, I think it should be something that's reserved for the residents and kind of split the difference. 2 out of the 4 lots. There's plenty of parking. Thank you.
Councilor Kopech?
I have a couple of concerns, not the least of which is that this hasn't been, it hasn't been vetted through the Parks and Rec, put through the Recreation Advisory Board. And normally, when we make changes to what's going to happen with the beach, we do that at the beach workshop. And so this is sort of a surprise to me that we came up with this. And then I have some concerns about, do we really, I think we should be monitoring, maybe this summer, we use this summer to monitor the use of the parking lots after 5 o'clock to see if we have, what the level of concern and problem we have with the north parking lot. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about it to know whether it's an issue or it's not an issue. I have some concerns because we do have the food trucks on Mondays and Wednesday nights, and they're in the north parking lot. There are some people, I'm concerned about the possibility of the needs of people with physical disabilities who may come to, may be visitors, may be residents. I'm not sure how we would know, if you're not somebody who has a parking tag, but you are a resident, or you are a resident with a summer home and your license plate isn't from Rhode Island. I don't know how we need to work out the details is my concern about this. So my recommendation would be to table it and for this summer and to take a look at what we, see what we really, what happens and have some data. I feel weird that we have no data on this per se. And then, bring it up when we get to the beach workshop.
Okay. I just had a question for our town manager. I know this lot has the food trucks, and I know I've been there in the past, and when I've been there, it wasn't really full, and there was always room when I went with my friends. So has there been issues, or are they crowded? Are they packed, like between the hours of 5 and 8, like on any given day?
Obviously, it varies on the weather and what events are going on in town, but there have been concerns from people who have called my office on it, saying that the lots are full sometimes at the end of the day, and they can't get in.
Like all the lots are just
Not often, but I do get calls on it once in a while.
I mean, you'd expect it for the Philharmonic. I mean, good luck with that one. But I mean, and maybe the movies. I don't know for sure, but I've walked my way down Ocean Road to get to the Philharmonic many a time with a chair on my back. Yeah. But that's a really unusual one, and I guess some of the fireworks too. But I don't know if it's a regular thing or not. It just something I think we really should do some research on first.
Yeah, and I share the same concerns as Councilor Kopech, because this didn't come from Rec Advisory Board. We did have the beach work session, and it wasn't really addressed at that time. I know it's like we usually follow the process of that. Also, like when I've been to food truck nights, that's where the north lies, where the food trucks are. And to me, part of the experience was like you set your chairs up behind, like your car, and you meet friends. And again, like when I've been there, it hasn't been crowded. And I know I've gotten comments about how that when they drive by there, it's usually not crowded or packed. So those were just some of my concerns as well. I will, if none of the council members have any more discussion on this, I'll open it up to the public. Ms. Alberto.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I think the Recreation Advisory Board has recommended in the past that some of the lots be reserved for residents. And frankly, if you work and you get out of work at 5 o'clock and you know the lots are open to the public, you're not even going to be bothered going down. Why set yourself up, for disappointment? I know I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't be getting my stuff together and going if I knew the lots were open to the public at 5 o'clock. I think we could do some kind of a compromise, keep the north lot open at 5, and then leave the cabana and the south lot for residents only after 5, and that way, they know that they can go. I think it's kind of a happy medium. I guess the west lot stays open after 5. I guess the residents are not supposed to park there. But, just start with keep the north lot open to the public, and then reserve the cabana and the south lot for the public, and see if, and for the residents, and see how that works out. But again, You know, if you know all the lots are open at 5 o'clock and you get out of work at 5 o'clock, you know right well they're all coming from the state beach. I wouldn't bother, frankly, going down. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Hi, Roger Jardis, 1 Blandbrook Drive. The town manager made a very good point. Yeah, he's gotten calls. I can't get to the beach after 5 o'clock. Myself, I couldn't get to the beach after 5 o'clock in the past couple of years. Not as a correction, Catherine, but I would suggest to leave the south parking lot open to the public after 5, because that's where the young kids go. That's where the surf is. The north part, the north parking lot and the cabana, that should be for residents only until 8 p.m. And as far as tabling it and kicking the can down the road again, we've been to enough recreation advisory committees, and they're in support of this. So I think you ought to take action tonight on it. The cabana lot, just as it was proposed, the cabana lot, the north lot, residents only until 8 p.m. And then the non-residents can be in the south lot and the west lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Ms. Jarama?
Gina Drama, 11 Fifth Avenue. One of the things that we talk about in the Rec Advisory Board, I'm a member of the Rec Advisory Board, is this particular stuff, and we have no data. That's what my big concern was. We have discussed this. We've never made a recommendation, at least not this year. But the data needs to be, you need to inform your decisions based on the information that you have. And so one of the questions that I think we've asked twice now over the last 2 seasons was how many people are parking after 5? What percentage of the lots are full? And can you track the number of people who come? I mean, obviously, if the lots are being full, or if the lots are full all the time, then there's something that we need to be done. But I don't think the data supports that, but we don't know because we don't have the data. And so in order to better inform your decision about how to move forward, you should have some numbers. And so maybe this is the year that you collect those numbers and figure out what it is that you actually need to look at and how you're going to inform your decisions. There's enough bad publicity about the beach. People are not happy with all the fee increases over the last 5 years. And this is not going to make it any more palatable. And so if you are a tourist and you're coming to Narragansett for the week and you're paying to park, and then all of a sudden someone says, oh, it's free for residents at 5 o'clock, that's going to make you even more unhappy. Just think about the outcomes. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch?
Dennis Lynch, 22 Central Street. So this is democracy in action because I'm also a member of the Rec Advisory Board, and we haven't come to a conclusion on it. And I'm not speaking here tonight as a member of the Rec Advisory Board because we haven't reached a conclusion, but I am speaking as a resident, and I'm also speaking as one of the leadership on the Narragansett Peer Resident Association. In our most recent survey, 70% of our members were in favor of providing some restricted access for some of the lots. We're not asking for all 4, asking for 2 of them. If a person is not a resident, they may cross the street. They may walk up from the south lot to the north lot. This is not really cross-country work if people want to get to different places on the beach. And it was serendipity in the pandemic. That's how this all got started, because for safety reasons it was done. And a lot of residents felt, gee, this is a really nice benefit of being a resident, not a seismic change to policy, and just something that the town council can do, as the town council sometimes has a want to do on other advisory boards where they choose to take a different path. So I don't think this is like, separating from South Kingston. I don't think it's a major tumultuous event. I think it's a nice, reasonable benefit to residents that really doesn't dispossess non-residents. And we checked before. People came in, you have a license that says you're in Narragansett, a lot of other ways of saying it, and you have staff that are somewhat laissez-faire, like they're not going to hold you up, for contempt if they want to let you through that night, because you say you're a resident, you may not have everything there. So, because there is a big influx on certain nights and certain weather events where they're lined up to come in. So I think it's a reasonable, modest, resident-friendly benefit that the council could act on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Warren.
Tom Warren, 26 Jakes Way. I just want to let you know that the Rec Advisory Board has not discussed this. Therefore, the Rec Board does not have an opinion on this. But I think also you have to take into consideration when you look at this, you're looking at the north lot and the Cabana lot. The Cabana lot on many nights, every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, has events at the North Beach Clubhouse, which renders that lot virtually full. So to consider that to be an option for available parking is really not an accurate way to look at it. So just looking at it from the north lot, you look at the south lot and the west lot available for non-residents, and all the street parking and the seawall, that's a little more clearer way to look at it. I'm not making any recommendations, I just want to clarify some of the parameters that are included in this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pugh, did you want to, was your hand up? Mr. Richard.
Steve Richards, 91 Inez. I use the beach quite a bit, and I can say that from the beach point of view, from a town resident's point of view, clearly it's a nice benefit. Benefit also, I was curious to see how the thousands of people who come here, who have houses here, own homes here in the summertime, and how that will work out for people out of state or out of town, and who have, even if you live in Providence and you have a house here, and how you prove that you're a town resident, and why if you're a taxpayer, that issue is going to, and also for the food trucks, the food trucks are not, sometimes they're greatly used, and sometimes they're not. But a lot of times, as you know, Rhode Islanders don't like to walk 10 feet. It's always the closest parking lot that you can find that you want to go. So I'm certain the food trucks are going to be, would be affected by this thing at all. So there have to be some consideration, I would think, for the guys that have paid the licenses to get the food trucks to make sure that they can get the most people possible. So I think that this particular issue, the town residents, if you want to put a rope up at 5 o'clock and saying town residents in this half and everybody else on the half where the food trucks are, so that people can park over there in the food trucks, town residents, you're not going to have 15,000 people from the town going at 5 o'clock, but you are going to have a few, and there should be some consideration for that. But if you're a town resident, or you have a town pass, or somehow you get a pass if you're out of state and you own property here, that you should be able to park in the town. So you just put a rope up at 5 o'clock, and it's a simple thing to do. And then one side says town right, one of the sides says. But if I were a truck user, and a food truck user, I would not be too happy about this particular issue. I think that'll have a significant impact on some of those poor guys that are putting out licenses to sell food there. So that's my
Mr. Pugh.
Hi, Jesse Pugh, 40 Birchwood Drive. Thank you, guys. Just want to acknowledge that I think what is being proposed is, I think, with a good intention. I think the intention is to benefit the residents, but I would challenge this actually being a benefit to the residents. I don't think it is. I think there's a reason why this has not been implemented in the past, other than the 1 year under COVID, because of the general restrictions. And the reason is because it's not necessary, because these lots don't get full. We don't have to really guess about what's going to happen this summer if the lots are going to be full after 5 o'clock, because we know historically they're not. Anyone who goes to the movies at the beach or any of the events at the beach, I'm not sure if the members of this council do that typically, but I'm in a demographic that goes to almost all the movies on the beach in the summer, or at least half of them. And there's never, ever, ever been an issue parking in any of the lots. In fact, most of the time when I go after 5, I can get a spot in the cabana lots. If not, there's plenty of room in any of the other lots. But back to my point about whether this benefits the residents, I think there are a few reasons why it doesn't. The first is that there is a cost associated with staffing these 2 lots with town staff just to turn people away when there's room in that lot for the park. So that would be every night of the week you'd have to staff those lots. Second, which is a reason that I think is just very obvious, is that anytime you have, as a person who lives in Narragansett, I know I get a lot of visitors in the summer. I get visitors who come in and stay with us on the weekend. And then I have friends who live in the neighboring towns, South Kingstown, North Kingstown, Jamestown. They want to go to the beach after 5 with us. We'll go bring food, hang out, and spend a few hours at the beach. With this policy, I couldn't park in the same lot as my friends. So if I have another family staying with me, that means that when we drive down to the beach, I have to tell them, you guys need to park down in the south lot while I park in this lot, and then we'll meet up at the beach, instead of just parking next to me when there's plenty of room in the lots. So what really is the benefit? If there's not a parking issue, which there isn't, other than maybe 1 or 2 nights a year, one night being in the Philharmonic when it's paid parking anyway, and then maybe if it's excessively warm that summer, then maybe another night or 2 where it's full. But again, what's the advantage? So I don't think there is one. I think it's not resident friendly, assuming that you have friends who like to visit you. So thank you.
Mr. Schofield?
Yes, Harry Schofield, 9 Atlantic. So I want to rise in disagreement with that last speaker and exercise my support for the comments, Dennis Lynch made. As he pointed out, our NPRA survey last year, 70% more of the residents support this. So I thank Jill for putting this on. This is an eminently fair thing to do, to keep the north lot and whatever space is available in the cabana lot for residents who do work and want assurance they can get there and find not just parking space, but beach space. If you have friends in town, take them in your car. It's always a way to do it if you really think that's the issue. Rarely is something come before this council that's as clear as this. If you are for the residents of this town who elected you, you'll vote yes for this. Because a vote no is a vote against the residents of this town, and we all know there have been many speakers at this microphone over the years, including me, pointing out the fact that in many occasions, things go on in this town where the residents take a back seat to other interests. Here's a case where you can do something simple to support resident interests. Give them a few extra hours in 2 of the 4 lots. This will have no impact on food trucks. Again, a vote for it is a vote for residents. A vote against it is a vote against residents. Thank you.
Mr. Catanzaro?
Ron Catanzaro, 17 Atlantic. I wanted to put some context around. I am also a board member for NPRA, and I thought it might help for you to know that it is now a townwide organization with 200+ resident members. So when we say 71% of our membership, it's a town-wide thing. So I think that's important for you guys to understand that we're getting really the voice of the people, and I know that's something that's always very important for us. Thank you.
Ms. Scowcroft.
Well, I did write to all of you a letter with my thoughts, so I don't need to belabor my position. But as the chair of the Friends of Narragansett Town Beach, I want to say that this really would be the right thing to do. We have, Mr. Pugh is not correct. There are many nights when residents are reluctant to park in the lots because of how full they are. Perhaps not every single space is taken. But I want to reiterate something that Mrs. Celeberto said. Because we don't have parking, we don't go, because we know that it's going to be a heavy tourist situation down there. We're not enjoying our movies at the way that we would, in the numbers that we would. I'm a lot older than many people here that have spoken, and for years, we had a huge community of Narragansett residents that met each other for dinner on the beach. The kids all played, we'd hose them off, put them in their pajamas, take them home. That is gone from the fabric of our town because we have an increase in overcrowding, we have an increase in tourists. I'd like to see that kind of community development have a possibility to come again. I would like my grandchildren to be able to experience the same thing that my kids did. So I'll reiterate what Mr. Schofield said. Please do this for the residents. We deserve it. It's something that we would like to see happen. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, any additional discussion from the council? Okay, so again, I'm just going to give you my final thoughts. So this, again, we hadn't discussed this at the work session. It's never came up. I know there's always been a process in the past, like when we've had the work sessions or we've had recommendations from the Rec Advisory Board. We just started the beach season. We're into the beach season, and making changes, like it's kind of difficult to kind of put forth changes when we've had opportunities to discuss this in the past. And again, there was that issue again. We're going to have to staff the lots because we're going to have to check to see who it is. And that had been one of the things that I had thought of earlier as well, is because if it is only residents, I don't think Ms. Kershaw has that in her budget. I don't think she budgeted for that. I don't think, that's gone through, through our budget process, or, I know there's an enterprise fund, but that was not brought up. And it's not that I'm not for the residents, because I'm trying to make this community more resident friendly with a lot of the agenda items that we've been tackling. But for me, it's just that we have processes in place, and then I feel this should have been discussed earlier on in the season. And, I'm a big data person too. Like I'm a pharmacist, so I like to see data, and I've asked, where the data is for if the parking lots are full. You hear anecdotal, answers, and when people drive by there, they say they're empty all the time. The times that I've been there, they have not been full. I've been to the food trucks with my friends. I've been to the movie nights as well. And maybe there are a few nights where it has been busy, but those may have been the nights that, was the Philharmonic's one of my favorite events, and I know that it's always packed that night. So again, this kind of feels like it was just put on here like after the fact when we had opportunities to discuss this. So for that reason, I'm not going to support this motion tonight. Any other comments from the council?
Yeah, I think you're going to get that. I'm totally in the opposite with that one. Just to reiterate, when the rec board met, it was early in the season, they made recommendations, and although they didn't vote, the rec board did unanimously speak at their meeting and state that they wanted to go ahead and increase beach classes and things like that. So we don't always take what the rec board says and run with it. But this one, it's a small ask, and we didn't make changes. I wanted to take a look at facility changes and make improvements and do things with numbers, and we didn't do that. So this is one thing that we could do. We certainly do have the money in the enterprise fund to be able to pay for this. It's really, that's a really small amount of money. It's going to come down to, I can't agree more with Mr. Schofield. This is going to be a vote. Either you're going to be voting for the town residents to steal one from Stanley, it still says Narragansett up there, or you're not on this one, and we're offering 50% of our beach. So I'll have to respectfully disagree with you, Eva.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Well, again, this isn't a vote against residents. It's just for the process. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion fails. So motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion fails 2-2. Next on the agenda is a motion to approve a third-party vendor for short-term rental ordinance services.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. And this is just being brought back because I'm just going to give you a synopsis of the timeline of where this agenda item is coming from, because this has been on in the past, like a different iteration of it. So back at the last council, back in October, Deb and I were on a subcommittee where we put together a short-term rental ordinance that we had a work session. So we discussed that. That was tabled, and of course, we had a new council. So with this new council, most of us, I think the majority of us, support a short-term rental ordinance. So this motion, there was a motion that was put on the March 20th agenda item, and that was a motion for a short-term rental ordinance development, and that was to direct the town manager to solicit bids for third-party vendors to collaborate with town to develop a short-term rental ordinance. So we had that on the agenda. Unfortunately, it failed. It was a 2-2 vote. We had a council member who was not present. So then, that kind of went. The next time we introduced something again was the March 3rd council. It was the regular council meeting date, which again was for short-term rental ordinance development. And it was a motion to determine next steps for the short-term development, and just coming up with a strategy and way to start moving that forward. Because again, we do have a council that wants this to move forward. That motion that night on April 3rd was amended to a motion to direct the town manager to solicit quotes from third-party vendors, including but not limited to DeSisto Law Firm and Granicus, and that did pass 5-0. So we were waiting for, just the information from DeSisto Law Firm. We finally were able to get that to us in writing on May 12th. We had already had the Granicus, just the proposal. And that proposal was very, very comprehensive with what they were offering. It also was going to be covered by a grant. We had a grant opportunity using funding from a grant to cover that cost. And we were able to bring the cost down from $18,000 to $15,000 because we had already in place, or we had put together a short-term rental ordinance, the previous town council. So they were able to use that. And the timeline that they had proposed, or actually had committed to, was that they could finish this from start to finish in 8 weeks. And that 8 weeks meant public hearings. That meant just really putting everything together, getting stakeholder feedback. So again, that was March 20th that Councilor Kopech and I had put this motion on, and it is now 10 weeks. So in that 10 weeks, we would have had this completed by the end of May. So now we have the opportunity to discuss this again. So we have basically, we're deciding tonight whether we're going to go with the third-party vendor, Granicus, who has expertise in this field and who's done a lot of work on short-term rental ordinances throughout the United States and could really just put together something comprehensive and just be the facilitator of this, not saying that the town does not have input, because we do, because we have the ordinance, and just being able to just to package that up from start to finish. And again, we all know that we're going to get sued. So I just wanted to make sure that all our I's were dotted, all our T's were crossed with that recommendation. So the other option is, going with the law firm DeSisto, who I think the extent of what they were going to do is just really review the ordinances, make recommendations. I don't know what the turnaround time is. I don't know what the cost is, but it is a law firm. Whether it's, it's an hourly rate. So basically what we got back was a letter from DeSisto stating what the hourly rates are going to be. So that's just the background story. I just wanted everybody to, it's been a long time coming. We've been talking about this even from the previous council. And so I'm just going to open it up to discussion from the council first. I'll go to the public, and then we can make the determination. But the good news is, whichever decision we make, it's going to move forward. We're going to progress with having a short-term rental ordinance. So that is the good news. It's just making the decision which route we want to go. And I did get confirmation again from Granicus that they can do this in 8 weeks. So with that being said,
I'd like to stop.
Okay, Mr. Ferrandi.
Yeah, as I've stated before, there's the past councils that brought this up, and, it's time has come to get something done. And the document we have is, it's not totally complete, but there's a lot of good items in here. So that's the reason why, I think that the DeSisto law firm, it's a local law firm, and, it's a law firm too, so we can get the legal aspect, which is very important in this. And, Granicus maybe can do a lot more to maybe develop a brand-new one of these, let's say. So I think, we'd probably be better served with the DeSisto law firm, just to kind of, dot all the Ts, cross all the Is.
Okay.
Excuse the other way around.
Yeah. So just to clarify, they would be taking our ordinance and working with the ordinance that we had.
Yeah.
So not DeSisto, Granicus. Granted, that's why they're willing to drop their price, because we've already done a lot of the legwork. So they would be taking that ordinance, we'd be submitting because we did get input from, other stakeholder groups. The Imperial sent a letter, and just including some of that and moving that forward to include with the ordinance that we had developed. So I just wanted to clarify that, Mr.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, it's, I just feel having the comfort of a law firm to look at it would kind of, dig in a little bit deeper at some things. So that's where I stand.
Thank you.
So the ordinance you're referring to, Steve, is the ordinance that was actually developed by Eva and Deb and Wayne. We have a written ordinance. So what you're recommending is we take that written ordinance, we hand it to the DeSisto law firm, not have them create it, but have them comment on it and make some suggestions and move forward in that way. And they do have their rates here. The rate will be ranging, if it's a junior attorney, between $170 to other, if it's DeSisto, it's $190. But I do have one question for Mr. Davis. I know I received a couple of questions from some people who actually happen to be in the audience here tonight, but if we were to go ahead and to engage this DeSisto law firm to take a look at our existing ordinance and to comment on it, would that in any way deter the town, as Eva said, when we get sued for any type of law, whether it be the short-term rental, the 3-student, or the foreign-related? If we were to have DeSisto comment on it and make suggestions, would that put the town in an awkward position with using him in the future to actually litigate?
No, I don't believe there's a conflict that would impact their ability to represent the town.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had on that. So I agree with Steve. I prefer to go the route with giving our existing ordinance to the DeSisto law firm. It's going to be at their hourly rate, even with the discounted, and I commend you for getting Granicus to come down in fees, but I mean, that's $15,000 in 8 more weeks where we have someone who's doing hourly work with an existing ordinance.
Ms. Kopeck?
I think, my concern with DeSisto is that they don't have a tremendous amount of experience with the short-term rental issue across the universe, and Granicus does. And I think that one of the things, and having had some conversation with Granicus, what I would say is that even in just, general conversation, some of the points that they made about the ordinance that we wrote were really helpful for us to understand how to work towards something that would get us what we're looking for, which is, a short-term rental program that would work in this town for our residents. I don't know if DeSisto could do that the same way. I understand that they're attorneys and we will need attorneys, but the fact of the matter is that we need to have a clear understanding of what we're doing and how best to approach that so that we don't need a lot of attorneys. So in my mind, I think Granicus, they gave a very comprehensive document to us as to what we should be doing. Essentially what the DeSisto law firm did was give us a fee, rate. And I would be significantly more comfortable with Granicus.
And just to add one thing about DeSisto, it is a law firm, but it is also the law firm that is used by the League of Cities and Towns of Rhode Island. So they do have work with all other municipalities within the state. So they have a breadth of knowledge about what's happening in the state.
Okay, anyone, excuse me, anyone from the public wishing to comment? Mr. Schofield?
Harry Schofield, 9 Atlantic. I do not want to see this delayed. However, I'm at least operating under the assumption we've waited so long now, we have probably lost to the summer season if we were to implement it next month. So if that's true, and if there's any benefit at all to Granicus that would justify waiting an extra month or two, I would guess, I would just say if I was sitting up there, I would want a legal opinion as to whether going out and spending the money and waiting 2 months to have Granicus write a report would be any more beneficial to the town in a defense, if there was a defense. And I guess I would recommend making the decision that way, because absent some benefit in the case of a defense, I think it may be time to get on with it. But if there is a benefit, then that's probably a reason to wait a couple of months, given that we probably missed the season this year anyway. I don't even know if that's true, but anyway, we sort of pooted the ball in the parking. We've taken too long with this, and so anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richards?
Stephen Richards, 91 Inez. It's interesting because this has been a complicated issue for a very long period of time. And it seems like there's been bounced around for a long period of time, and it affects a lot of people. It's not something that's it's not a simple issue. And that's because it's not a simple issue, and because there are a lot of complex issues to be decided yet, or seems to be, then it needs to be decided, that having someone from the outside looking at this who's got a great deal of experience would make a lot of sense. The fact that they're having that DeSisto it's a very good law firm. I mean, they're a very, very good law firm. They're a law firm, and we have a solicitor here, and we have people on our staff who can assist with that, with legal experience. And so I think hiring a lawyer is sort of like especially a junior lawyer. I mean, nothing wrong with junior lawyers, but we need to get this right. If it takes a little bit longer to get it right, to make sure that we do the best possible thing, that we have the best possible alternatives, based upon the history of this thing, it doesn't seem to be good managerial sense to simply say, okay, we need a lawyer to take a look at this to defend us. If we don't have a good lawyer here who can't do that stuff on his own, then why is he here? Why do we have a town solicitor? So we need to have people who understand the law, but we also have to have people who understand the issue. And to advise the council correctly, because it does affect a lot of people, and it's going to be a long-term effect. It's not just this year, this summer, or anything like that. And because it's a long-term effect, and because of the people who are moving into buying properties in this town, who are having a significant impact on the real estate of this town, and a significant impact on the residents of this town, all of those issues, whatever they are, and I'm sure everybody's discussed this to a great deal of extent, but having a good insight from others seems to be a prudent attempt to do the right thing. And then we depend upon our town solicitor to make certain that we're following the law. I don't know what you need another lawyer for, to spend $15,000 when you have a junior attorney. My guess is Mr. Davis over here is not a junior attorney, you know? And so, I mean, I don't think that makes, myself, I don't think that makes any sense at all.
Thank you. Ms. Amoruso?
Hi, sorry. Susan Amoruso, 111 West Bay Drive. I totally agree with hiring an outside evaluator, grant us. I think that it's a specialty, and we need that specialized knowledge. A law firm gives us an hourly rate. If you're just looking at dollars, you might not get your money's worth if you don't have someone that's a specialty. They serve many towns and stuff like that, but it's a broad service to many towns and cities. But this company, this is their business, their livelihood. So it's a specialty, and this is such a cantankerous, difficult issue that it would just make sense and probably save us money in the long run to have a specialized company. Because there's so many things, like you've just said, that, in talking to them, there were things you weren't aware of. And I think we definitely get our money's worth by using that. And I agree with the previous person that initially what they come up with, that our town solicitor could provide that service. And then if we need service beyond, that would cut down on the hourly rate that you'd be giving another law firm. Because their specialty is not summer rentals. And so I'm for, I agree that hiring an outside firm, this firm that seems reputable and stuff, is the most cost-effective way to go. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public? Oh, Ms. Celeberto.
Catherine Celeberto, 48 Rose Court. The DeSisto Law Firm is not a junior law firm. Isn't this headed by Mark DeSisto? Mark DeSisto is older than I am, and that's going some. It's a full-service law firm. They've been voted super lawyers many times. Mark DeSisto has won numerous cases. Rebecca Poddington is an attorney in the firm. She formerly worked for the city of Providence. It's not a junior law firm. They're not junior lawyers. We're not going to get advice that isn't up to par. These are experienced people. They're partners, so they can interchange with each other. I can't imagine why we would hire consultants when we know we're going to have a legal challenge. Why wouldn't we hire an attorney? And just because we hire the DeSisto Law Firm to recommend this, maybe changes or no changes to the ordinance that's already written, we're not bound to them. We can hire any law firm in the state that we want to. This state's awash with lawyers, okay? So we can hire the DeSisto Law Firm to advise us, and then if there's a court challenge, we pick the person that we think is best. But I can't imagine why you would go with consultants who aren't attorneys when we absolutely need legal advice. Thank you.
Mr. Lynch.
Dennis Lynch, 22 Central Street. So I spoke in favor of hiring this particular third party sometime back in the spring. And the people who said back then, we're not going to move forward with that consultant when it would have been completed now. You can't say, we can't hire the consultant now because it will take too long. That is sort of frayed logic that you cannot apply to this. So let me understand, we have $15,000 fee that we have money from a grant with a certain time frame, and 8 weeks is like the speed of light for local governments. You need to do both, right? This is not, oh, we can't touch the lawyer because we've hired this third party. The third party does governance and policy structure, and the attorneys review it and assure you that you're on the right course legally and through the right protocols and processes. So please don't do this again. Don't waste another 2 months. Fire the gun tonight, bring on the consultant, and engage the attorney who has not given you a timeline or has not given you a project structure. Engage them at the right moment to give you the most fortified result for this very, very important process. Come on. You look at the state database, and we are double short-term rental, over 900, and the next closest one is 400 and something in the 39 cities and towns. We have to get going on this. We are way, way behind the curve, and you have to govern tonight. You cannot have a tied vote here. We cannot leave here with 2-2 and gee, let's figure it out at the next meeting and the meeting after that. Please govern, please do the right thing, compromise, and get this process underway. Thank you.
Mr. Catanzaro.
Catanzaro, 17 Atlantic. I want to 100% back what Mr. Lynch said. I don't know why it's an either or. I would think it was a both, to be honest with you. Have the policy document drawn up, have the SISTO take a look at it. How much can it cost us to have a lawyer look through it, run it against case law in the state, see what's good, and then we have a rock-solid document going forward. I don't know why we can't do both, and I agree 100% with them. Let's go tonight. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to comment? Any final thoughts from the council?
No, you have.
I'll reiterate my points that I said before about how, I think we have a good document that we're looking at. I think it just needs to be gone through a little bit, get some legal advice with it. Granicus is a lot bigger company. I realize that. I guess, we do some other things with them. But, they may be looking more for a contract down the road to implement that kind of stuff. So I still think we need the SISTO to kind of cross all the Ts and dot all the Is with some of these important issues. And I don't know if we can get both. I mean, have you talked about a grant? Does that cover the whole thing? I mean, that's not set in stone, is it?
Well, we had applied for a grant.
We have applied, it hasn't been received yet.
Actually, I'll ask our town manager. That was part of the, we do have funding.
Maybe we could, if there's an...
I'm sorry. I was just going to have an answer, sorry.
We did submit to use funds for that, for the grant. We have not received a response back yet on the grant awards.
Was there a question about how much money they would be? Or do we know if we got the grant, what the amount would be?
We wouldn't know the full amount until they award it.
Okay, thank you.
I would think if we went with the attorney, he'd be able to get it back in a short amount of time.
We can get the
I
grant
mean, they're
money.
just looking at the legal part of it. Maybe he could suggest to take some things out, maybe add a few things that we would need. But I think the turnaround could be fairly quick. And then maybe at some point, if the grant comes through and Granicus can take it from there, once we get it established as a compromise.
I think that's
putting it out
that's
there.
kind of a backwards way to do it, though. What we're looking for is the expertise of this organization. I think actually Mr. Lynch said it very, very well, so I won't reiterate it, but because I couldn't do it as eloquently. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. We need to do this in a structured order, and the order is to take the experts in this field to provide us with, you know, excellent advice as to how to make a better ordinance than the one we originally put together. And then we have attorneys evaluate that to make sure that we don't have any issues with Rhode Island state law. And that, to me, makes tremendous sense, and that's, I mean, I can't imagine doing it any other way.
Council Waller?
So if you look at the actual description, which I am right now, for Granicus is on page 3, the first 2 paragraphs, the first one talks about them holding interviews and exercises with local policymakers and staff. We know what we want. So the time frame of the 2 months is what really has me on it, as well as the fact that we've applied for the grant, but we haven't received it for the $15,000. But if there is a way for this company to make it not 2 months and only incorporate what we want them to incorporate, we know there's an ordinance that is already written that I believe that we can agree that we feel is what the town wants and wants to take a look at. There's no need for us to conduct any type of a interview. We know the rental property folks are going to hate it, and we know that the town people are going to love it. So we know that. So I don't see why we need to do that. But if there is a way to work with this company and look at a component that they can help us with, which might be the social host compliance data or that information, if they can come up with something that we can work together with that group. I disagree with my colleague. I think that they could be worked on together and should be worked on together. And perhaps that's the answer to this, that we actually engage both, but not for the full-fledged $15,000 2-month, but to have them start at a point that's a logical point to start at with the existing ordinance we already have and have them collaborate. I think that would be a reasonable compromise.
Yeah, so I just want to comment on that too. So the reason that it's 8 weeks is, I mean, and that's like the quick turnaround, is because we're limited by, you have to advertise for public hearings. There's obviously, we know that there's like timelines that you have to check off the box for that. So it's not that it takes them 8 weeks, it's the fact that all of this can be done. It's just like the timelines. Even if we had a lawyer or law firm do it, it's still going to be a while because you have to advertise this stuff. You have to do public hearings and all that. So anyway, I don't get it because
But that's my point, Eva. You don't have to. We don't need to have a public hearing. We know how the town feels. We know that they want us to do it. So to get rid of that component would get rid of a good chunk of time. And I think it's going to be the only way that this council tonight is going to agree, is if we can come up with something. Unfortunately, Susan left. Had she not left, you would have gotten the vote the way you wanted it. Sorry.
Well, I'm willing to compromise. Like obviously, I told everyone we're walking away with a solution or just moving forward with this. Obviously, we see we see a different pathway to it. I'm again like we need if a 2-2 vote fails, we're not doing a 2-2 vote. So I just want to say obviously this conversation is to see if there's any consensus or anyone was willing to kind of see any other opportunities to do something different from whether what was proposed, one or the other. Again, I had my reasons for that, but we're going to move forward one way or another. I don't know if somebody wants to make a motion or, if there's anyone else from the public. I think
just what I just said, I'd like to make that motion for us to take a look at what if we could get rid of the component of
it's not. So I'm sorry, Jill. So the proposal we got is the proposal. There's not like, you don't go back to them and you don't say, oh, I want this, I only want this. It's what they offered, and that was the proposal.
But if we say to them,
it takes a while to get it. So I'm fine. Like if you want to just go with DeSisto, I'm not gonna.
No. What I'm
not
saying
gonna
is, I'm not
argue the
saying
point.
that. I'm not saying that at all, Eva. You're not listening, or I'm not articulating it correctly to you. What I'm saying is, we could go back to the company and say, we already have an ordinance that we feel is representative of what the town wants. Can we then have you utilize your help for the background conditions report and for that information? So skip a portion of it that would be time-consuming, that we already have the answer for. We know what the town feels, and I think that's a reasonable compromise for us to make.
So so I did go back to them, and then that's why they changed the pricing on it, because it was less, and we had the ordinance, so they're going to use the ordinance that we put together. They were going to we did a lot of the legwork, and they said that that's what they can use. So anyway, I think we just need to come up with a recommendation, a motion.
I make a recommendation to approve the DeSisto law firm for the vendor.
Isn't there any way that we could go back to these folks and have DeSisto? I like the DeSisto idea, but I
Sure. So somebody can make a motion to do.
I'm sorry?
You want, there was a suggestion about using both. Is
Right.
that a possibility?
That's what I'd like to
Up with this
find out, is
council?
if we could use not the full $15,000 proposal that they gave us, but go back and work with them. Mark, do you think that'd be something be possible?
I haven't dealt with Granicus, so I don't know. But I would say this, that if Granicus has this expertise that they espouse to have, and they're able to assist the town in drafting what they believe to be an ordinance that reflects the town's desires and that is enforceable, I would certainly review it. But if you wanted DeSisto Law, who you know is representing the town in the foreign related, who has done a host of research into these types of matters, it's different but not dissimilar. I think the scope of work for DeSisto would be very narrow, and it'd be very inexpensive, relatively speaking. So I think if you chose to use Granicus, and I have never dealt with them, so I have no idea if you can go back and negotiate scope of work or how long it takes to negotiate that. But if you could use them to hone in on exactly what you want and get through the process, because that's not DeSisto's expertise. DeSisto's expertise is research, review, apply. That's what we would want them to do, right? Here's our ordinance, what's out there, what has been challenged, what has survived. This is what I suggest you tweak. If Granicus gets us to a point where it's well drafted, they have the support to provide DeSisto Law and myself, so that the research is limited, I think it could be I think that's the ideal path, quite frankly. So I can't speak to the Granicus contract. I wasn't involved in the proposal, and I've never dealt with them. But I know the town does work with them. You would think they would be cooperative. I just don't know if skinning down that, what impact that has on cost or time. It sounds like they've already considered the existing ordinance, peeled off $3,000. I don't know how much more there is there. But I can tell you that it would really narrow DeSisto's scope and make the legal job much more expeditious and much less costly.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to make one other point. I just was rereading the letter that we got from DeSisto, and in no place do they say that they have expertise in this field. And they say that it says, as I understand it, the scope of our legal services will include research of similarly situated short-term rental ordinances in Rhode Island and elsewhere, and legal research and analysis on the legality and enforceability of short-term rental ordinances, which does not indicate to me that they have worked on short-term rental activities in the past. Well, they didn't say it.
Well, they didn't say it, Deb, but.
Well, if this was what you were, bidding on, you'd probably make mention of what you know about it, I would think.
I had
that's
a
what I would
motion
do.
on the table. So I had to,
Okay, Mr. Ferrandi, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve Mike DeSisto Law for the third-party vendor.
And I want to go with that, but I hear Mark's words, and I need to heed them as well. If we can get the scope down on Granicus and make the combination, I think that's our best bet. So
Can you hire?
No.
You want to hire both?
Comment is over.
What's that?
You didn't get a
We can
second.
figure it out, we can whittle it. So if you want to just make a motion to hire both, like was mentioned.
It's not really on the motion here, but. Make a motion to hire the DeSisto law firm and, you know, maybe be able to get Granicus to help us with the implementation once we get the ordinance.
So we could do that. We could also ask to direct the manager to speak to Granicus and Mark to speak to Granicus and see if we could get their scope lower.
I don't want to direct.
We don't
Okay,
get- but
actually,
that doesn't
I just
work
do,
tonight.
I do want to go to the, because it seems like, Mr. Pugh, I know you were on the council last time, and you can come up and speak on this.
Jesse Pugh, 40 Birchwood Road. I just wanted to come in support of the motion to hire both Granicus and DeSisto, and just to move forward with this. I'm surprised that there's this back and forth over such a small amount of money, relatively speaking, especially when you have the town solicitor essentially saying that going with Granicus and having DeSisto review is the ideal scenario. So again, I mean, this is something that has been discussed for years.
Right.
Everyone in the audience has been waiting for years. We weren't able to do it with the last council, although Deb and Eva, you made good progress towards the last year. But it is, I mean, it's like, it's very surprising to see this kind of debate over a few $1,000s. I mean, why even bother going back to shave a few $1,000s off? It's $15,000. Move forward and do it now. So, thank you.
So should we make a motion that we hire Granicus and use DeSisto for legal analysis after the fact?
I still would like to have the time. It's not the fee. We know it's 15. Sure, 3,000 was rolled back. That's nice, but it's the time period. And if we can have a way that we'll work with them. I mean, the town they're doing our new software. If we can work with them and say, we want to be able to incorporate both vendors together. How could we have you do it quicker, a shorter period of time? We don't need to have the public hearings. We don't need to go ahead into
I think we do need to have the public
So
hearing.
I'm speaking right now, Deb. So in my view, we don't need to have it. We know what the town wants. We have the town ordinance. So if there's a way for them to change their scope of work to incorporate what the town needs, I think that a vendor would want to work with us. Mark?
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
So the cleanest way to do it, in my opinion, would be to approve it as is with the understanding that the solicitor and town manager will call Granicus and discuss. I mean, I'm sure for the same amount of money, they would skinny down the work. I don't have any I'm confident that that would happen. So the question is, what's necessary, what isn't? If you approve it and direct us to do it, we will do our best to narrow the scope, but not compromise the product. But at least we know we have it, we're moving forward. And then I think it would be wise to engage DeSisto, but it wouldn't be from the outset. It would be to review before the Granicus product is voted upon, have the solicitor clearly, and DeSisto from a lawsuit preparation standpoint, take a look at it before it comes up to vote. And I think that can all be done simultaneously. So I don't think it's going to add any time to it. So I think if you agree to engage DeSisto for review and comment, I mean, you don't incur any expense until they actually do the work. And we drive when they commence the work and what they do. So I would approve, if it were up to me, Granicus, with the understanding that we'll get on the phone tomorrow. We'll walk through the proposal with them, and we'll get done what we can get done. And the worst-case scenario is, that's the timeline.
That works with me, Steve. Does that work with you?
Yeah, as long as Mike's, the Sisto group's going to be able to do a lot of the legal, some
Yep,
of
no,
the legal
that's-
end of it. I mean, I'm only going from the work product we have. I mean, there's been a lot of work already done on it, so
Right.
I don't know how much.
So that's what Mark's saying. We would
Yeah.
engage both, but we'd have, tomorrow morning, we'd have the town manager and the town solicitor contact Granicus and see if they could dial back their scope of the work.
Okay.
Can I just clarify one thing? Maybe Janet, you can help us. This is an ordinance. We have not had a public hearing. We would still have to have a public hearing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
It's an ordinance change. You have to have a public hearing.
Okay. So we need a motion to move forward with whatever it says on here. Hold on a second. Motion to approve a third-party vendor for short-term rental ordinance services, and do we need to modify that to include a review?
And to
and
direct,
a legal review after the fact?
and to direct the town manager
And
and
to
the
direct the
solicitor.
town, to direct the town manager and solicitor to have a discussion with Granicus about what the scope of the work is and possibly reduce the amount of money.
And time.
cost.
Time is,
And
the
time.
big thing is time for me.
Okay, we need a second, I guess.
I'll second that.
Just to clarify, so the motion would be to,
There's one.
a motion to approve a third-party vendors, because, I mean, DeSisto is a third party. If we just clarify it, a motion to approve third parties for short-term rental ordinance services, and direct the town manager solicitor to engage both Granicus and
Scope of work, yes.
and
DeSisto.
DeSisto
Yep.
for scope of work, or, Mr.
Thank you,
Davis,
Mark.
does that sound right?
I think you got it.
So,
Do you have it,
okay,
Janet?
so basically, okay, so let me read it again, and then just let us know if this makes sense. So it's a motion to approve third parties for short-term rental, third parties including Granicus and DeSisto for short-term rental ordinance services, and direct the town manager to engage in discussions with Granicus and DeSisto for scope of work. And that was, that's by Counselor Kopech, seconded by
That's
Counselor.
my motion.
Okay, yeah, that's Counselor Kopech's motion, seconded by Counselor Lawler. So we'll take a vote now.
You okay with that?
Yeah, that's.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Okay, so motion by Counselor Kopech, second by Counselor Lawler. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. Now we have to.
Yeah, so next, we have a motion to retire to executive session of the town council in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-4 and 42-46-5A2 to review all pending and possible litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I need a roll call. All in favor?
Deb Kopech, aye.
Jill Lawler, aye.
Eva Jasinski, aye.
Steve Ferrandi, aye.
All right, we will be back to, after executive session, to adjourn. Okay. All right, we are back from executive session. So the disclosure of executive session votes. There was a motion to seal the minutes made by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Ferrandi. Motion passed 4-0. Next was a motion to exit and reconvene, and that was made by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Ferrandi. Motion passed 4-0. Lastly, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion to adjourn made by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0.